Nial. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we are talking about setting goals for the school year, which I think to a lot of students, I know that when I was in high school, this would have been annoying to me. Like I would have been like, I'm getting my homework done. What else do you want from me? So kind of tell me, let's talk a little bit about why setting goals is a good idea.
Sure. And you hear a lot about setting goals often in a professional context, but why not try to apply this to all that you're trying to accomplish in high school, right? And the intent here isn't necessarily to add more things to do, right, to your already very full lives, but to add a little bit more intentionality, perhaps, right? And to add a little bit of structure, right? And to set concrete objectives for yourself. And at the end of the day, it is a way to celebrate, in a sense, the opportunities that you have ahead of you, and to really be a little bit more of an agent, right? To have a little bit more agency as well in deciding how to proceed toward a certain objective, toward a certain goal. So that would be my sort of big picture framing about why goals can be really helpful, right? It is about celebrating your strengths as opposed to adding any stress to your plate.
Hmm. And I think that's really important to note. And I also think, as someone who really didn't get organized until my last year of college, it would have actually been very helpful for me to think about when do I work best? Like, should I set goals around what time I start my homework? Sometimes even really simple things like that can make a difference and would have
Mhm.
actually made my workload easier, not harder.
Exactly. And this isn't meant to be you going out and adopting someone else's approach, someone else's goals, and adding them to your own plate. It should be something organic. It should be something individual to you. And that's where thinking really strategically about how to go about formulating a goal that works for you can be really helpful, right? And there's lots of models out there. The one that often comes up, perhaps as the first response if you were to type this into Google, but how do I go ahead and set a goal, is a model called a SMART model. And
Mhm.
I'd love to spend a couple of minutes explaining that to folks who perhaps are a little bit new to the idea of a SMART goal. And what does SMART stand for, right? SMART is S for specific. That has to do with within setting a goal, the who, the what, the when, the why, the how, right? Those sorts of specifics. The M is measurable, right? If you're working toward a goal, if there's a way to really measure your progress, that can be really helpful. A is attainable, something that's reasonable, something that is realistic, of course, right? And R here is relevant, something that is has a relationship um, with you in a sense, right? Has something perhaps that is embedded in your values, right? So that your goal setting feels like something that is authentic to the person that you are. As I said, is something that is perhaps organic to you because it is something that you really care about, right? In that sense, relevant. And then finally, T for time bound, something that has an end date in mind
Mhm.
as well, right? Sometimes we come up with a goal, and if we were not to put a a limit to how much time we could spend on it, it could be something that's a lifelong goal. And there's something to be said about lifelong goals as well. But for this context, if we're talking about academic or extracurricular or personal goals within the high school setting or within the college setting, that's where the time boundness of it can be really helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, you never get to it, I would say. I think
Yeah,
that's pretty,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I could also walk through perhaps an example of how this could play out, right? Just to
Hmm.
help elucidate it a little bit, just to help ground it a little bit. So let's say that you are a high school track athlete, right? And your event is high jump. All right. So how would that play out in how would a goal within the context of high jump play out in reality for a student, right? So let's say that you set a goal for yourself that you want to hit a 2 meter jump. All right. And that's great because it's a highly specific goal, right?
Hmm.
you could add to the specificity by saying that the way I'm going to do this, from this with support from my coach, is that I'm going to work on my run up. I'm going to work on my foot placement. I'm going to watch some videos to really figure that piece out. I'm going to get really good feedback on that really particular specific element of it, so on and so forth, right? Um, in terms of the measurable, I'm going to track my progress over time and see what's really having an impact and boosting my height up a little bit at a time, right? Is it attainable? Are you going to set yourself a goal that is beyond the world record? That's maybe attainable, but highly unlikely, right?
Mm-hmm.
So keeping something that is realistic in mind as well and relevant, right? Great, you can go swimming, but is that really going to help you be a great high jumper? Maybe, but sort of not relevant. And
Mm-hmm.
finally, time bound. Maybe you have a tournament at the end of the year that you're working toward. You really want to hit that goal by the end of that academic semester, right? So you see how something as easy as I want to get better at high jumping can become a SMART goal and a really specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound goal for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about a student of mine who had struggled academically, great kid, but struggled for a whole variety of reasons. And when I talked to him about setting goals, he said, I want to get all A's. I'm going to get all A's. And he had been a largely C student. And so I thought, you never want to discourage someone from such a goal. But I was like, what do you think is going to be attainable?
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to get there? And so it was kind of an interesting process to go through it with him to try and get him to understand. I was like, I would love it if you get A's, but how about B's? Like
Right.
let's start with what's very attainable. That's one step up, and then we can set a higher goal down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's where setting a goal that can feel motivational as opposed to a stressor is also
mm-hmm,
key, right? And that's maybe where that piece of attainability might come in, right? The piece of specificity might also come in. You don't want this to be something that feels like it's looming over you in a negative way,
mm-hmm,
but instead something that's lifting you up in a positive way, right?
mm-hmm,
And that framing is really helpful, is really key. And
mm-hmm,
what are the tools that you have in your vicinity that you have access to that you can bring in to your practice in order to make that goal realistic and attainable for you, right? So what is that element of it that feels like it's ensuring that it's a sticky goal, something that you can
mm-hmm,
really stick with and keep
mm-hmm,
it sustainable? Thinking through that can be really helpful, right? And as I said, you can bring people in, right? Do you have people that can help you be accountable to yourself, right?
mm-hmm,
What are the systems of accountability that you are creating for yourself without it getting too obsessive, right? But
mm-hmm,
something that can help you feel like you're making sustainable progress toward that end goal. And one of the ways that I think about that connects back to what we were talking about a little earlier in making sure that whatever you're working toward, whether it be an academic goal, whether it be something extracurricular, or whether it's just something personal that you have an ambition to work toward, right? Is it grounded? Is it based in your values, right? Are you looking inward to seek that source of motivation? Because if it is something that feels authentic to the person that you are, that is going to be a fountain of motivation for you.
mm-hmm,
It's going to feel really natural to put effort and time and energy in that direction because it comes from inside.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, an example I think about is I'm going to get an A in my AP computer science class. Um, but then if you dig in deeply, you find out the student really prefers history and they're doing
Right.
computer science because that's what their parents want them to do. And I think the motivation is not going to be as strong in that situation. Not that you
Absolutely.
shouldn't work hard, but, you know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Investigate the why, right?
Mm-hmm.
That underpins the subjective that you have. Is it something that you're doing for yourself? Let's go back to the high jump example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it something that you couldn't leave high school without seeing your name at the top of the list there on the school wall?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so is it vanity? Sure, if
Mm-hmm.
that's what that's
If
what
that's what
gets you
motivates you,
motivated,
yeah.
right? Sure. Or is it self-improvement? Is it seeing? Is it learning, right? Um, about how to manage growth in a way that feels good for you, right? That really feels rewarding for you, right?
Mhm.
And remember, at the end of the day, we're talking about you as a student. We're talking about you as a young person. And hopefully, as you're thinking about goals, as you're thinking about your academic journey, all of this is sitting on a foundation of this being an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to grow, right? And that really should be the bedrock upon which all of your effort in high school is situated.
Mhm.
Um, because at the end of the day, everyone wants you to have those sorts of opportunities for growth, for learning, for self-reflection, for developing directionality, right? But you are a student at the end of the day.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I know this is something that's very hard for students to contemplate, but what if they fail
Yeah.
at this school?
You've heard this a million times, right? Failure is the key to long-term success. And this is exactly a way in which you could actually test out that theory in the span of a few months to a year or a couple of years or through your college and high school journey, right? And so what is it, as you're setting your goals, right, you want to establish for yourself certainly what success means, right, in that specificity as we refer to. But there's a difference between success and progress, right? And as we are just talking about, uh, any progress that is intentional, that is grounded in your values, that is moving you in the direction that you want to go in is excellent, right? Is just a gift. So be kind to yourself at the end of the day. If you happen to
Mhm.
not meet that highly specific, ambitious goal that you set for yourself, be kind to yourself because
Mhm.
um, if you land up with a bad taste in your mouth around something that you really love because you didn't exactly hit that ambitious goal, that's going to be counterintuitive, right? So part of this is also, can you be flexible? Can you be nimble? Can you adjust your goals as you go along? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that we as professionals do all the time. That's something that I feel
Mhm.
like I do in my personal life all the time. We plan, but also be flexible. And that's such a great skill.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's all about resilience ultimately.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
All right. And so what comes afterwards? Like let's say whether someone fails or succeeds at their goal. What's the next step?
Whatever process that you have for yourself to reflect on the journey, right, is going to be really essential here. If we again go back to the point of you're a student, this is an opportunity to learn and grow. So much of that really can happen after the fact when you're looking back and you start to recognize, oh, maybe I should have approached this thing in a little bit of a different way, or that element of it was really successful. I think I'm going to add that into my practice and adopt it in other contexts as well, right? We do a lot of brainstorming with students around essays. I love when students are able to make those connections. They have an experience where they learned something that was really key to them, and they realize through conversations with educators, people in their family, friends, that actually that lesson that they learned in some other context, they've taken that and they've applied it to something totally different, and yet it was the key to their success within that second context, right? So this is a great example of that. What can you draw with intention and apply it to other elements of your life through that reflection, through that looking back in detail? And that's where that specificity can really help as well. That's where the measurability of things here can also help, because it's giving you a chance to pinpoint where success was and where opportunity for growth was.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Well, Niall, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. A great fun topic to discuss, and yeah, most important lesson: be kind to yourself,
Yes.
and yeah, and also feel like you're in the driver's seat. This is a great opportunity to
Mhm.
to feel like you have true agency in something.
Mhm. Yeah, without a doubt. Well, this is really putting you in the driver's seat. I think that's the most important thing. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, thank
For
you
having
again.
me.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody stick around because we're going to be talking to Stephanie Goldner from the Pennsylvania College of Technology, the college that works.